Hi, so this is going to be a very different kind of video. So I have with me Dr. Poornachandra, who is also a co-founder at Medblocks. So Poorna has been working with me for more than 2.5 years now.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years.
And we've been hard at work, we've been building a lot, and we just thought we'll take the opportunity to introduce him first to you, and also just go through what we've been doing, where Medblocks is going as a company, and yeah, just like be more open about what we are doing. So, Poorna, what's your story?
Okay, firstly, hi guys. I am Dr. Poorna, also a doctor who finished his MBBS degree, and then I decided to shift to health tech because I've always been in love with programming, with technology, and how it's possible to improve the world using technology. The outsized impact you can have maybe for patients. So, and then I have a story if you want me to tell it.
Yeah, I mean,
So during my internship at my medical college, they shifted softwares. Okay, they shifted from one EMR to another one. Turns out the newer EMR, when they did shift, had no way to record lab data at all. So now what this ended up doing was, when the lab output used to come, let's say RBC value, WBC value, the technicians would note it down and then later manually enter it into the EMR. You can see the problem with this idea, I'm sure. Right? So what happened is, there was one particular kid who had dengue, who had, let's say, had platelets around 3 lakhs. That's, I think, 300,000 per millimeter cube. And then turns out the next report, which is in 6 hours, it had suddenly reduced all the way to somewhere around 25,000. And everybody was panicking. Hey, how did this fall happen? Just one spike of fever and so on. And then because of this, then what happened was, I was sent down to investigate to figure out what happened. Was it an error in processing? Was the sample we gave coagulated already, and so on? So now when I found out, turns out the technician had written the right number, but then the technician gave the slip that had the number for someone else to enter it, and they missed a zero. Now, this could have cost someone's life in some other case. So at this point, I decided, why did this EMR not implemented? Then I found out who implemented the EMR and asked them. Turns out they didn't care. They said, this is not something we use every day, so we don't care.
so the technician had copied down the zero wrong.
Yep.
And that could have, I mean, in this situation, it was more benign and nothing really happened. But imagine it was the other way around. The child had a platelet of 35,000,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they
Entered an extra zero.
Yeah. So I think you have attempted to build your EHR before.
Yeah. So before I met you, my idea was that, imagine if we had an EHR, that could combine all sorts of data. For example, it could combine patient data with diagnosis, then diagnosis data with surgical data, and so on. Because most EMRs in the market today, and even back then as I saw it, could not do this at all. So I was using a graph database where I could join all these basically really complicated joins to get data out. And then I think I saw your profile on GitHub, and I'm like, hey, here's another doctor that's actually doing hardcore tech, not just doing HTML, but actual tech. So that's how I reached out to you.
No, and I mean, we've been working really hard, and I think the options that people have in the industry when trying to decide what they can implement in a hospital, like usually they want some sort of a digital transformation, right? Like they want just like do something, get everything on into the computer from paper records. And usually we see that people have very few options. So it's usually like one vendor who does everything.
Yeah.
Like one software vendor who's like doing something.
Yeah.
But then they don't do everything quite right. And I think like there are these big vendors like Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, like out in the US, now also growing to Europe, Singapore, and so on. In developing countries like India, we see a few players who are actually coming out on top. But then what we are hearing a lot from the people on the ground implementing the software in the the hospital setting is that they just don't do something well enough, and they do these 5 other things well, but then they don't do this other thing, right?
Yeah.
So when they think about like taking another software and then like integrating it, it's just a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible to do. So what have we been doing as Medblocks is a lot about educating people and just like bringing out awareness that there is an other option available, and that is that of standard based data platforms and then building separately on top of the data platform. And we've been doing a bunch of training, we've been doing consulting, and we've also been building product, and like Poorna has been leading a lot of the product efforts. So this is just an update on what we've been doing, what we've been up to. So Poorna, what have we been doing?
Okay, so I'm excited to share this. So we've been working on this product, I suppose since a year or so, right? Since we realized. So we noticed that what people want isn't necessarily one big vendor who does labs, who does radiology, and who does the clinical EMR, and then also does billing, right? These are different domains, requires different expertise, and one SaaS solution that can just be deployed everywhere is not going to work very well. Now,
it sometimes works, but then they do it very poorly. They kind of do a half-hearted effort at everything, and then like it kind of works in some scenarios.
Yes, it kind of works. And the second you want to do something extra with it, let's say, hey, I want to understand how many patients came into my hospital today, just falls apart. Everything just quickly falls apart, right? And you have to go to the same vendor over and over again. And we've seen these problems. We've been hired to solve some of these problems at times, develop integrations and so on. So what we've been trying to develop is this modular EMR sort of an idea, where you have this core that can store your data, that stores your data in some specified format. In our case, of course, it's OpenEHR and FHIR. But we have this core, and then you have this extensible tooling around it. For example, let's say there are forms. There might be different ways to visualize data. There might be different integrations to write data and read data and all of this. They can all go around this layer. So the core layer is what you invest in. And then based on your need, you're able to develop the module around it. I know I'm sounding very abstract at the moment. I'm sure once we show demos that it's going to be.
We should jump into it. I think a lot of our people, they like just seeing, So do you wanna take it over?
Yeah, sure. So what you're seeing is the Medblocks platform. So we call this the Medblocks platform. You can see a simple patient list here. This has some fake patients, and actually half of our team members as well. So
the APIs that drive the platform is all standard based.
Yeah, so you can, as we said, you can think of this as the UI shell around the data that we're storing. So now this UI shell can be customized however you want. I'll just quickly show you what that can look like. For example, let me pick a patient. I suppose, why not? So here, everything you see here, or most of what you see here, including the colors and all the data you're able to visualize, is actually a custom component, a custom component that's been developed for this very specific use case. And all the forms you see as well have been custom developed. So you're able to develop these views, these applications that you need based on your requirement, based on your practice.
So before this particular demo that you're seeing was made for an ophthalmology setup, an ophthalmology hospital, and we are currently going live. We are in the phases of going live, and all of the data that you see is actually like deployed in this ophthalmology setup that we are talking about.
Yeah, I think, that's why you see all the ophthalmology forms. So all the forms have been custom made, but all of this still revolves around that central data core. It's not bespoke SQL queries that are running. It's not random APIs that we have decided to go with. These are all standard APIs, FHIR and OpenEHR, that power everything underneath. So that's what we've been focusing on over the past year. We've deployed in a few places. I think we have new updates and new features coming out.
We've still not really made the platform that public because we want to kind of test it out and see for ourselves that this can work and that this idea is practically feasible. And for us, this is still like an experiment. And we are still working hard to make this work. And right now we are seeing initial results that, you can pull this off. And this is something that we've done in enough centers for us to now come back and show you and talk to you and publicly show what we are doing, right? So we've been quite putting our heads down and just like working on this. But I think it's still very much in the early phases. So we are still not fully confident that this is all there is to it. But we kind of have an idea that something like this would replace traditional EHRs that are available today. Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think? Next, we'll just get into the features. I'll show some core features around the product.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've made it clear that the whole EHR here runs purely based on standard APIs. So what this means is that you can take out one fire server and replace it with another fire server. You can take out one OpenAir server, for example. You can take out an open source version and replace it with a hosted SaaS offering. And it's very similar for the platform as well as the apps on top of it. So now we'll get into the apps, but before that we'll show some of the platform features that we've kind of just built for our own use cases in a sense, because we thought that made the most sense. So yes, Poorna.
Yeah. So moving on. So the first thing I want to talk about is the forms we've made. Okay. I think our forms look beautiful, really. So how we develop forms is, firstly, you generate an OpenEHR template, right? As a standard procedure, you figure out what data points you want to collect. You talk to the clinician. You have a set of data points. You make it into a template. And in our case, we've built an automatic renderer. What I mean by that is, if you want to upload a template, we're able to generate the form fields dynamically. And then, you can basically save your data through it and interact through it. However, I must say, this is a very basic way of doing it. If you have a few data points, this makes a lot of sense. And if you're going to fill out each data point yourself,
Probably show them a demo of what the form looks like.
What the form is going to look like is this. This is a simple vitals form, blood pressure, body temperature, and so on.
This is like they are just modeling this outside of our platform. They are modeling it using like a OpenAir based tool, like Archetype Designer or like Ocean Template Designer, and they're bringing in the templates into the platform, and then we are able to automatically.
Yeah, we're able to automatically take care of the form generation quickly. Now, of course, the form that's generated is customizable. There's a whole guide on how to do that. But the other interesting feature I want to talk about is, now that you have a template, and let's say your form looks different than how your template looks, okay, which happens quite a few times. So what you can do is, let me just talk about the intraocular pressure form we have, right? So if you look at the template-based demo, this is what it looks like, right? This is a really long form for basically 6 data points. This is not going to work very well for us. But however, if you can now develop custom web components, right? There's a guide on this. There's a playground on this. We'll soon be open sourcing that and talking about it more.
So parts of this is already open source. Like this is based on Medblocks UI, which is the open source library that we've open sourced probably like many years ago.
Yeah.
But we are kind of like trying to tie this back to the product that we are also building, right? Like, so the problem here is that most of the time the forms don't look a certain way that the doctors want, or it feels kind of odd because they're used to a certain look and feel of a form.
Yeah.
Right.
So now let me show you what it looks like once you have the web component that's ready.
And again, this is probably like maybe a day or two of effort from a developer who knows what they're doing. And again, like with AI, it could probably generate some of these forms itself. Yep.
So yeah, this is what the form looks like now. Once there's a custom web component that we've built, right? You can see that the form is much shorter, much clearer, and easier for the clinician to understand. It's not a long list of fields, right? So this is the first feature I'm really excited about, which is the way we handle forms, right? And all of this, of course, on top of the OpenEHR template, on top of the OpenEHR, any OpenEHR server you can think of.
Any OpenEHR server, any Fire server, it's very vendor agnostic. We just depend on the APIs, so it kind of works with multiple offerings. Do you want to talk about the forms and the read-only widgets as well together?
Oh yeah, sure. So the other thing you can see on the right side, this is something we call the read-only view of the form. The clinicians want to quickly grok what happened in the last visit. The last time this patient's vitals were measured, what was the vitals, right? So that is something we support with something called read-only widgets. Again, we have an automatic way to do this, or there's a custom way you can do this using widgets. Again, half a day of effort. It's just a read-only view, and so on. So yeah, that's the read-only widget.
Should we start with some of the apps then?
Yeah, sure. So you would want to like to tell them what apps mean. What do apps mean in this context?
Okay. So For us, an app is basically anything that you can run within the context of an EHR. So I think Smart on Fire kind of did this first in a proper mature sort of a way.
Yeah.
So you have an EHR, right? Like that is the basic shell, and it does a lot of things that you want it to do well. Like for example, we have forms, we have like ways to look at forms, we have the patient details, but then there will be a very specific workflow that needs to be built around a very particular use case. Now, having the EHR do this might be possible, but it might just be like a lot of time and effort to go back to the EHR vendor, ask them for new changes and so on.
Yeah.
So to me, an app is if a hospital or if a organization can hire someone from externally and then build something and then integrate it into the EHR without the consent or the cooperation of the EHR vendor, that's an app. Like I think that's a definition of an app. And here, we have a few apps. Maybe you can show the ID card to begin with and the AI forms.
No, we just go with AI forms.
Okay.
Honestly, it's a much cooler app.
So this app helps the practitioner enter the eye diagnosis really fast using voice. Okay. Now this is again like very experimental, and we are still like in kind of debug mode here. But then the cool thing is that this runs in an iframe, and all you have to do is like provide the URL at which this app runs, and then it integrates within the EHR. And I can just I'm ready now. I'm just gonna do I'm gonna select the right microphone, and I'm going to say the patient has cataract in his left eye. There you go. And the patient also complains of blepharitis in the right eye. So you can SNOMED CT code this. You can do a lot. But then the matter of what I want to focus on is the fact that this integrates within the existing clinical workflow without any effort from the EHR vendors, right? Like, so although this is quite heavily using some of our existing libraries and some of these features, this app works natively on top of the same standard-based APIs that the rest of the platform works on. So everything from authentication to just entering this data, everything works
just the same.
Just the same. So they can kind of build. So in a sense, if someone can't build a feature that we've done in our EHR, then that's problematic.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so our whole philosophy is that any feature that you see within our EHR, you should also be able to do independently using the APIs, and you should be able to build your own app that you can again integrate back into the EHR as a first-class citizen. So in a sense, this is like an app first take on the EHR instead of it being
heavily tied down to
one vendor.
Yeah, one way to do everything.
Everything, right? So, I mean, this is cool, but I like showing people the context awareness of the dictation. So for example, can you delete the last entry? Yeah, it doesn't work.
Coming back, then here again, as we can see, right, there's a patient summary. This is the patient summary. So if you have a patient with a lot of visits, you can see all the visits one below the other. They're summarized. For example, here you can see complaints, advice, visual acuity, what were the findings, diagnosis, and everything else. Everything in one concise view.
And this is a widget as well.
Yes. So this is also a custom widget that's been only developed for this use case. There are a lot of data that we aren't surfacing. Like, for example, autorefractometer is not being surfaced. Prescription glasses are actually being surfaced. So the idea with this widget is every physician, every specialty has their own needs. Like, you don't know what data points they're going to care about. All the recorded data points might not be necessary. So what you can do is you can just have a web component, basically in our case, that you can mount and just show the data that's necessary.
I mean, we can maybe expand on this widget and then show what data is actually in there. And then we are basically not showing all of this. We are just deciding not to show all of this.
Yeah.
Right. And that depends on the preference of the clinician and what they really want to see. Yeah. So this is sort of a summary of that particular visit shown in a way that's optimized for that particular organization.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So we went and asked them basically, hey, what would you want to see in a patient's visit to you? So they said, hey, these are the data points we care about. I want to quickly grok them and be able to treat the patient.
You're using grok a lot. But yeah.
Yeah, no, fine. We want to quickly understand them and then see what's going on and treat the patient, right? So all of these are actually data points within that one single visit. We're deciding that, hey, we're not going to show all the data. It's a lot. And we're only showing a limited subset. The clinician is able to understand quickly what's happening. So that's the idea.
Yeah. So what else? What else is exciting to you, and what else have we been doing?
I think so far we've summarized what the idea behind the platform, the problem that motivated us as well, and then some few cool features, right? A lot of, I'd say they're cool features, but a lot more features to come about as well.
For sure, for sure. I mean, we think we have deployed this in quite a significant number of health environments, but we still think we have to test a lot more, right? Like, and there are a few things that have worked well. So, for example, the forms looking and feeling a certain way, and being to take full control over that and full responsibility over that has been a huge win.
Yep.
The widgets looking a certain way, and just not bothering to have a default implementation of that in the EHR is a huge win.
Definitely.
But at the same time, there are a few issues as well, right? Like, for example, they'll have to know beforehand what template they're using.
Exactly.
What what archetypes and how to put these things together.
Yeah.
So there is a good amount of time before we go to implement for a particular specialty. We need to spend to really understand their needs. So that does take some time, and I don't know if that is usually traditional EHRs come up with.
Yeah, they just have a limited set of forms per specialty. They just say, hey, this is what you use.
It's usually like, do you support this specialty, right? Like, do you support ophthalmology, or do you support psychiatry? And the EHR vendor will be like, yes, we support this, and then they implement it. But that's usually not the case with what we have. It's kind of like, yes, we support ophthalmology, but what flavor of ophthalmology would you like? Like, what level of summarization do you want? So there is a lot more control.
Yeah.
But it also comes at the cost of you need to know. And sometimes a lot of practitioners may not have the time to invest in understanding at what level that they need this data and so on.
Yeah, that's
right? So we always need a clinician champion, right? Like who wants to head this and who will take that lead. So usually we've had good experiences with such implementations where there is a clinician lead.
Yeah.
So that's we've showed them
a quick demo.
Very quick overview of what's going on. So what's next?
Next is we keep our head down, keep working at this, I think we've deployed, we've had a lot of feedbacks, some mistakes made, mistakes corrected.
So yeah, I think you've seen what we have and what we are working on, and we are also trying to be a lot more open about what we build and what we ship, so that if this is something that you think you might benefit from, you can reach out to us. Or if you just think that, okay, there is some problem that you have faced while you are in the digital health space and you've tried to solve it in some way, and maybe the existing vendor or the existing EHR didn't quite allow it, right? Like, we want to hear your stories, right? Like, what led you to the frustration that you're facing right now, maybe, right? So for us both, this has been more of a we saw that the existing status quo was really bad, right? And we just want to do something about it, and this is our attempt at doing this. We are still quite early, but any feedback would help. So if you think maybe we should do something differently, or maybe we should focus on something else particularly, let us know in the comments below, right? And we are always here. You can reach out to us. You can check out our website at medblocks.com. I'm all available through email, Slack. Poorna is as well.
Also available, yeah. You can just reach out to us. Any feedback, any frustrations, any specific problems that you haven't been able to tackle with legacy EMRs, I think that's where we neatly fit in.
Yeah, so, and I think we are seeing that a lot of people who adopt us are also people who are not doing healthcare in the traditional sense,
Yeah.
right? Like they're in a way competing with the traditional healthcare enterprise as a whole.
Yeah.
And they have new ways of doing things, usually, better value-based care or capitation first models where they need all of this data.
Yep.
And they need to take out and mine.
To understand a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've been very proactive in helping these sort of people. But let us know, like, if you think this is cool, or if you think there is something that you would like to see, we would like to know. So we are pretty open, and we are basically figuring things out ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it. I think this is a different kind of a video, but
Hopefully a good one.
yeah. Bye.